Hi there, and today we are going to be looking at goal setting, and we are going to be telling you everything you need to become a goal setting guru as a writer. If we haven't met, my name is Chris. I'm co-founder of Prolifiko, and we coach and train writers to beat their writing blocks and become super productive.
And my name is Bec, and I'm a writer, and I've had a career working with writers. And I can tell you, I have learned a ton about setting goals. And that's what we're going to dig into in this video. So, what would be amazing is if you've got any questions or thoughts or comments, please post them in the comments below because we'd love to hear from you and get back with our own thoughts and responses. So, I'm going to get started talking about dreams and the difference between having a writing dream and having a writing goal. Now, as a child, I always dreamed of being a writer, and that kind of drove me to. I started working in a bookshop. I had a career in publishing, and then I spent years working with writers. But that dream wasn't enough for me to be able to do my own writing. I had to get really concrete about what I needed to achieve myself. So having a dream is really good motivation. It gets you feeling excited, imagining this possible future. But that's a world of difference between having a precise goal that will actually help you achieve that. And that's what we're going to dig into now. So I'm going to hand over to Chris, who's going to break down the components of the types of goals you can have.
So whether you're starting out with your writing or whether you're midway through, the type of goal and the type of method that you use to reach your writing goal is really important, as is being flexible about the type, as I say, about the method that you choose. One of the things that we often find with writers is that they become rather wedded to using to using the same kind of method that they have used in the past, even when it might not be working for them right now. And what we say is that your writing goal changes, and your method that you use to reach it changes throughout your life. It can change depending on what you're writing, and it can change depending on the stage of your writing process too. The most important thing is not to become wedded to using any particular type when it's not working. Do what works. We often say this. But we think there are, excuse me, 4 different types of writing goal, and I'm going to go through them now and look at some of the pros and cons of each. So first up is project goals. These goals are set around reaching a certain milestone in your project. So, for example, you might be writing a book. A project goal is to write chapter 3 or write chapter 4. Or if you're working on a piece of non-fiction, it could be to reach a certain point in the research or something like that. Or if you're working on a novel, it could be to reach a certain point in the plot or do a character development or something like that. They're really great for keeping you feeling motivated because they give you a sense of progress, ticking off those different points in your work. But for some writers, they do sap the creativity from the process as well, because sometimes it can feel a bit like a tick box exercise. So just be cautious of that when you use this kind of goal. Also, be cautious of being a little bit too vague, because, for example, if your goal is to complete chapter 3, what does complete mean? So just be aware when you're using that kind of method. Number 2 is target goals. So these are around focusing around making a certain word count, so 500 words a day, for example, or writing for a certain amount of time. We work with a lot of writers at the moment who use the Pomodoro method. I don't know whether you use the Pomodoro method. If you do, leave us your comments in terms of what you think of that method. Some people chunk up their writing time in terms of Pomodoro, so I'll do 2 Pomodoros today, for example. That's another example of a target goal. They're really great because they're clear and they're unambiguous, but make sure you don't lose track of where you are in the writing process when you use that method as well, because sometimes it can lead to project drift, as we call it. Number 3 is frequency goals. These are about building up a routine, building up a habit of writing. So, say, writing for 5 days out of 7, writing every weekend, that kind of thing. These kind of goals are really great for building up a routine and a rhythm of writing. And when you use them They're great for building up streaks, which is good for motivation and keeping continuing with your goal. But again, similarly with target goals, just be aware of project drift. Make sure you know where you are in your work as you use them. Number 4 is practice goals. Now, not all writing goals actually involve writing on your actual project. Practice goals are all about getting you into the swing of writing again, and they are all about making you feel more comfortable with the writing process, and they're really useful if you've been away from writing for a while, or if you're trying to write something and you're blocked, or you might be feeling that the project is a little bit overwhelming. Practice goals are really good to get you going, but beware, they can be a little addictive because they can be quite good fun to do a practice goal, so don't just stick with the practice goals all the time. Try and move on to the other types of goals as well. And obviously all these different goals can be used in different combinations as well.
Oh, so thank you, Chris. So there's 4 types of writing goals that we just talked about: project goals, target goals, frequency goals, and practice goals. And once you've got an idea of what type of goal you'd like to set, you need to think about how to go about doing it. And that's what I'm going to talk about now. But just before I do that, if you've got any thoughts on the types of goals, or if you've used any of those successfully, or they haven't worked for you, we would love to hear, because we believe that productivity is really personal and that you need to experiment to be able to figure out what works for you. So learning from other people can be really, really valuable. Okay, so let's talk about how to set a goal. Now, many people have come across something called SMART goal setting. So it's an acronym, SMART, and I first heard about it when I was in the workplace. It was used for, like quarterly goal setting, so your manager knew that what you were working on. And what it does is it provides a really useful framework about how to set a good goal. And we find it's really helpful to borrow from different areas of your life. So particularly if you're new to writing, you don't necessarily have a lot of experience in that area. So think about where you've done projects or had other goals in areas of your life and use that in your writing. And that's what we're doing with this SMART goal setting. So it's a framework, and I'm going to run through these letters, but not in order, so don't pick up on my spelling. I will start with S, with being specific. So this is really important. Just as Chris said, don't be vague with your goal. Be specific. Know what you're going to do. The next thing is T for time bound. As well as knowing what you're going to write, knowing when you're going to write it can be super helpful. A lot of us are really motivated by deadlines. It kind of gets us off the starting box, gives us something to aim for, which is where M for measurable comes in. You need to know if you've achieved your goal. So having something which is countable or something which you can see whether it's been done or not is really, really helpful. And then there's R for realistic. Now, this is so important that you're not too ambitious with your goal. You want to be, so if I think about my own writing, I would love to write every single day. It's not going to happen. My life is far too busy. I don't have time for that. So there's no point in me setting a daily writing goal because it's just going to make me feel down that I don't achieve it. So be realistic about what's possible. And that leads me to the last letter, which is A. So A sits in the middle of SMART, and I think of it as being really central in how you set a goal. And that means making it achievable. And I think of it a bit like having like a Goldilocks goal. You don't want something that's a bit too hot or a bit too cold. You want it to be just right. So there's no point in setting this really huge stretch, overly ambitious goal, which just will make you feel overwhelmed and sort of hot with panic. Neither do you want this really easy, underwhelming, small thing to do, which just leaves you feeling cold, frankly. You want something which is big enough to motivate you, small enough so you can get started, that gives you that kind of tingle factor, makes you feel excited and gets you going with your writing. So that's what I'm going to talk about in terms of how to set a goal. It'd be great to hear if any of you have used SMART goal setting in any other areas of your life. Have you tried it in your writing? And which bits are most important? Is it being specific or measurable or time bound that makes the real difference?
Now we are on to our power tip, which is our final tip, which is all about bright line goal setting. So neuroscientists tell us that your brain wants to protect you from things that are too complicated and things that are too challenging. And that's why when you set a goal, always try to be as clear and unambiguous with that goal as you can. So when your goal is simple and when it is transparent and when it has these bright lines, as we call it, around them, you know when you've reached that goal, you know when you've achieved it and when you haven't. So for example, if your goal is to write for 2 hours every Saturday, you know if you haven't written for that 2 hours, and you know when you have. If your goal is to write for 500 words when you get home from work on a Wednesday, and you do that every week, you know when you have managed to achieve it and when you haven't. It's clear, it's really simple to do. If your goal is to try to increase the amount you write over the week, you don't really know when you've achieved that or not. Bright lines work because they reduce the mental effort that it takes to achieve a goal, and we all want to reduce our mental effort. So that's why they work.
Thank you. So that's all of our goal setting tips for today. As always, tell us what you think. Have you got any comments, any thoughts, any questions, anything you really disagree with? We love to discuss and debate writing, so pop a comment below. And also, it'd be amazing if you are interested in this, that you sign up to our newsletter. It goes out every fortnight. It's packed full of top tips based on how to improve your writing practice, how to become more productive in the busyness of your life. We're going to put a link in the comment section below. So check it out. Check out the blog. We are Prolifiko. I'm Bec.
I'm Chris.
And thanks very much for being here.
Bye.